Oh, go ahead. Hi, everybody, and welcome. I just realized that I needed to hit the record button. Please use the chat. Let us know if you're a student. Let us know if you're a team member. Let us know if you're a parent. Let us know where you're chatting from. We've got a student from Nova Scotia, Canada. I think they might win the award from furthest away. Team member Meredith is here. Hi, Meredith. I'm so glad you could be here from South Carolina. Nate, we've got a nice mix. Jonathan, of students and team members. And that's exciting. So
it is exciting. I like to talk to the parents and the kids and everybody else. So
yeah, and what's cool is this is being recorded. So even if somebody couldn't make it, because we extend the time zones around here, they'll be able to watch that and also look you up and maybe contact you. We love to do that. We like to be able to, create connectivity in our community, especially with, people like yourself that are doing really important work. We've got Rick here, team member from South Carolina. Ooh, South Carolina team members are winning here. And lots of students. Fantastic. So just a reminder to keep your mic on mute unless you are asking a question. In order to ask a question, it'll be really important to write that in the chat. And then we'll have Q&A at the end. If there is something relative and you feel like you need to ask it during, that's okay. So we've got North Carolina, Connecticut, South Carolina, Nova Scotia, and I think we are good to go. So to be respectful of time, I would love to introduce Jonathan Allen. Jonathan, I feel like I should be calling you Dr. Jonathan pretty soon, right?
Maybe pretty soon. Yeah. Like when I get that paper written, I'll be a Dr. Jonathan, or as Ross and friends used to say, not that kind of doctor, but still I'll be that weird academic and medical-esque doctor.
That's awesome. You're going to inspire me. Because I was almost there and it was just so much. I was getting my doctorate in clinical hypnotherapy. So we'll have to talk about that one day. Maybe when I see how long your thesis takes, I'll have some hope. But speaking of inspiring, we started these monthly webinars for that purpose, to inspire our online community with resourceful, inspirational people like yourselves. And I know that you are a certified athletic trainer and you work sports medicine. And we have met at Loretta Lynn's as you have managed the medic team out there. And, that's a lot to manage. So I'm excited for you to share your story with our students tonight and happy to MC this with you. So I'll let you take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it. And, Andrea, we got to meet a couple of years ago, I think now that was my second year. This was my third year to work at Loretta's. So again, my name is Jonathan. I'm originally from Indiana. I now currently live in Jackson, Tennessee. So about an hour west of the ranch. So over near Memphis, Tennessee. It's been cold here the last day or two, so a lot colder than it normally should be, but I am what's called a certified athletic trainer. So I'm certified and I'm licensed in the state of Tennessee to practice sports medicine. So some people, when they hear the term athletic trainer, they think of individuals who work on strength and conditioning or help people get fit or performance, stuff like that. And while I can do those things, I also my degree is a healthcare degree. So I actually have a healthcare medical degree. I'm not a doctor, but I am working on finishing my PhD in human performance in sports medicine. And so that I can continue to do as I call my insurance job. So not my A job, my insurance job. I am a college professor. So I teach sports medicine at a university here in Jackson called Union University. So that's kind of my day gig. And I do a lot of moonlighting and all the weekend lighting. And I cover things like, we'll talk about in a little bit of, motocross and non-traditional sports like rodeo and things like that. So when I got asked to do this, I was kind of not for sure what I was going to bring to the table for some people and things like that. Considering you've had some pretty esteemed guests on here. And I knew I didn't want to just talk about strictly sports medicine because a lot of people may not like or understand or want to do that. But I feel like my job and calling as a college professor and as a medical provider and just um, a man in the community, I guess, is helping my students or those students young, that I'm in kind of entrusted with, is to help kind of find their direction and find their why, as we like to call it. It's a, so finding your way or finding your why, and then we want them to help kind of grow your, what I like to call your life network. So Andrea now I would consider part of my life and professional network, because we've got to meet and talk and do some things like this. And like she and I were chatting beforehand, she actually helped me grow my professional network without even realizing it this year by getting a chance to talk with Dr. Ryman and things like that. So that's been very helpful. So, all right, if I can get this to work here, we'll be good to go. There we go. So what is your why? What is a why? What's something you like? What's something you're passionate about? Some people use that old catchphrase like, you know, do something you'll love and you'll never work a day in your life. Or some people will say that of, find what you love, figure out what you love to do and then figure out a way to get paid to do it. And I kind of figure that's kind of been my approach without realizing it. And what that why is and why you're choosing to want to go off and do. And a lot of you that are athletes, whether it be motocross or if it's traditional sport athletes or whatever it might be, you guys have this passion to do this sport or activity. And you can take that, eventually be able to hopefully take that passion and the way you look at it and morph that into something you're wanting to do with your life. And I've got 6 kids, and my prayer and hope is that I'll leave the world a little better place than when I found it, and then they'll do the same thing. And that's kind of how it's, us older individuals, that's always kind of our hope and prayer, is that we'll pass on that to those students to go from there. And part of that is we figure out our niche or our way of doing it and how we want to go about it and approach it. So I own a company. Like I said, I teach, but I also own a company called Pillar Active Medicine. So I feel like this name, and I was telling Andrea about this before we started, is she asked me a very good question. It's kind of that elevator pitch question of why Pillar? What is Pillar? And Pillar to me is my faith in choosing to do what I want to do, my family, and then my passion and desire to serve those in my community. Those are my why. Those are what I want to do. And my community changes and evolves daily. So it can be my students here at my university I work with. It could be the football kids I work with on Friday nights. It could be the motocross families and kids I work with, 1 week out of the year for right now. It could be my bull riders I work with, or, first and foremost, it's my family, my wife and my 6 kids and my parents and things like that. So my encouragement is that you guys start thinking about that, especially you guys, some of you that are a little older, is what are some things that you feel that are important to you? What are some key foundational things that you feel like you're built off of and you can trust off of, and that you kind of know deep down, like, this is me, right? Our identity is not just in our activity or our sport by any means, but it's all part of but it is a big part of who we are. So how do we start to find, what is your pillar? And I've just translated my why to what is my pillar? What are my pillars? Right. And those 3 pillars never change based off of what I'm doing, especially in my professional life and professional career. So, and really they don't change in my personal either, because it's my faith, it's my family, and it's my community. And my community is either my family or my church, or, again, my students or whoever I might be working with at that time. So that's just a little bit of my why and my background. And we'll kind of go through it, and you guys will kind of see there's bunches of pictures and things, like all these people right here. These would be considered probably a lot of my why. This is my crazy family up here on the left. So my kids do a lot of theater. My son is a very, very gifted thespian and singer. So they were in, he and my daughter, they're in the middle, were in School of Rock this past summer, and they did wonderful and awesome. And I got to play bouncer and be part of the show and atmosphere and be a roadie and, part of it, to be a part of, the thing. So you'll see here, my kids do a lot. This is my wife, Crystal. This picture on the bottom left was us last summer. We went on a 12-week trip in our camper and RV, and just exploring the country, which is awesome. And that little guy on the bottom there is Archer. He was born in June of this year. So he was a very unexpected gift and blessing. So he made number 6. So we have a boy, 4 girls, and then than a little Archer man down there who's kind of running the roost at the moment. But he's the most chill little guy ever. So he added to my community, right? So he changed and added another realm of things. So just kind of want you guys to kind of have an idea of who I am. I'm a very relational person, and I feel like that is essential to building relationships and whys and in your community, and finding out what your passions are. Because if I don't get to know my athletes, or get to know my clients, or get to know my um, partners, right? If we make partnerships and agreements and affiliations with people, if I feel like people don't have an understanding of who I am and I don't know who they are, then that's not going to be a very good partnership in the end, because I don't get a chance to really understand them and they don't get to understand me. And that's a really, really big component of, again, like I said, growing that why, but then growing that life, that network around you, and who's part of your support. And, that will change and grow and ebb and flow, but there's still that core people down there. So, and then we got people like this. So these are all my students. So these are my college students. So this is Grace, the one on the left here. This is some of my students. We took off to a big symposium in the bottom, and my students and I were asked to come be the main medical providers, or some of the core medical providers on the course for the inaugural Ironman in Memphis last fall. So that was a big deal. Like our students were trusted with that, and we got to go down and kind of expose them to some of the top athletes in the world that were coming in, the endurance athletes. So again, this is just another thing we go through. And then we got people like Miles over here. I don't know if you guys knew Miles. So this is at Loretta's, the top one here. And of course, the bottom one these are two. You guys are my people, or my athletes and my people, like the people I get to work with. So the Miles story up there where I'm in the red shirt is he unfortunately broke his leg last fall, or in 21. He came in and I was the one who took care of him, and we x-rayed him up and diagnosed his fracture, sent him off to the hospital. And he came back later that day, or that next morning, he brought me the marker and said, "I really want you to sign my cast." And to me, that was like the most heartwarming thing ever. And the cool thing that was too, then he and his mom and I, and through Instagram and stuff like that, have kept in touch and watch what he's doing. And he was able to get in as an alternate this year, and they made a point to come find me at the medical tent. He came up and gave me a big hug, and we took a picture and got to chat. And it's kind of cool to see as we follow it through. And the bottom one there is Jack, and we got to meet this summer and go from there. And then the guy on the bottom left is my guy Seth. That is a game-winning point, PAT attempt to win the game in overtime, and he stuck that dude and made a good hit on him. And as a matter of fact, I was the first person he ran over and hugged. So that's kind of a cool, reason of why I get out there and what I do, because I love doing what I do. I love getting to build relationships with people, and I love getting the chance to kind of just spread the joy, I guess, out there, and love on people and show them what I do, because that is a really big thing of who my life is and who I'm around and who I would let my kids be around. And that's a big deal to me. So, all right, we'll keep going here. Hold on. And we got people like these crazy dudes. So you guys on dirt bikes think you're crazy, but which you are, don't get me wrong, but these guys right here, these bullfighters and bull riders, they're just a whole different, with no pun intended, they're an entirely different animal with what they do and what they strap themselves to and the way they go. So yeah, this has actually been a neat, because, I could, you saw the football pictures and things like that. That's always been my life. Working traditional sports has been my professional life. And then a couple of years ago, it was a bucket list of mine was always to work at Loretta's for the motocross side of things. And how can I get sports medicine involved? And then lo and behold, Facebook came along and someone asked and needed an athletic trainer for, that would have been the summer of 20, during COVID and stuff like that, and said, "We need an athletic trainer for this. Can you work the last 3 days of the event?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. That's awesome. I'd love to do that." And then last year they asked me to come back and do the full week. And then this year it was my company that did it this year, which was great. And then lo and behold, I thought, oh, bull riding would be fun. And it'd be cool to like expand into that arena, an area. And this guy right here on the bull on the right is Cody Nance. So he's one bull away, one full ride away from riding his 300th professional level PBR bull. He'd be the 20th person in history to ever do that. So he's a buddy of mine. We became actually really pretty good friends over the last year. And he let me work an event he was doing. I said, "Hey, I just want to come volunteer my time to work this event. I want to get in." He's like, "Oh, come on and see what's going on." And One of his riders right away dislocated his shoulder. I put his shoulder back in place, and it gave me a lot of street cred right there. And then a gentleman there's a local establishment here in Jackson called the Slide and Ride Rodeo. It's actually a bar. It's that top other picture. And I go every Friday and Saturday night and cover live bull riding and work with my bullfighters and riders. And it's just that, again, it's just my network has expanded and grown astronomically, just because of opportunities and getting in with people and building relationships with people and getting to know them. And that's what I want to encourage you guys to do. Is I used to do an assignment for my students every year, my freshman students, and I forced them. There was the assignment, so I forced them to have to go and sit down and if they wanted to go be an athletic trainer, or a physical therapist, or occupational therapist, or strength and conditioning coach, or whatever it might be, I always made them go find someone who does that and become their friend, basically. And they probably had someone they knew that did it. Very few of them came in just never having a connection to it at all. But go sit down and talk with them. Ask them, why do they do what they do? Why do they want to do what they do? Where did they go to school? What do they think about it? Is it what they hoped it would be? Would they do it again? Right. And then I always wanted the students to then tell me, like, this really makes me want to do this even more. Or I actually loved it when they'd be like, no, I don't really want to do this. I want to do something different. And that's great. And that's the whole idea behind it. And, if we can get those, get you guys as students, or to even encourage the parents too, it's okay to not know fully what you're wanting to do. Because I know I don't, it always changes. Finding kind of those passions and how those passions change. And I realized kind of deep down, I've always been more of the action sports, the non-traditional sports side of things. And that has allowed me to really expand what I do professionally, which has really allowed me to grow more as a clinician and a healthcare professional and provider. And it's really allowed me to then be a better educator for my students. And it's allowed me to then start offering high quality medical care to individuals who really don't get it. Some of you guys, I know the motocross realm, or some of you do the other sports and stuff like that. A lot of the amateur ranks and a lot of those things, they don't have medical people at them, just because either providers don't know, or people just don't think it's necessary, or we're not the pro level, so we don't have the money, or things like that. And those individuals deserve just as much high quality attention and care as the professional riders do. And that is a huge passion of mine, is to get those individuals the care that I feel like they deserve too. And again, it's my niche and way to get in there and do it and provide the same care as the professionals get. Because I've been doing this for a while now. It's been about 21 years, I think. I was telling Andrea that I've been certified at like 19. I've been doing it about 21 between college and stuff like that. So been around the block a few times and still keep going. So I kind of alluded to this already, and we kind of talked about it, but can your why change? And I'm sure if you pulled my wife in here right now and said, how has Jonathan morphed and grown over the last 21 years that she's known me? She would really be able to see that she was a Division I athlete, Division I softball player. It's how we met. I was her athletic. I was a student and she was a student, and I was her athletic trainer out working with the softball team. And I've got a big softball, baseball background. And I always thought I'd work collegiate sports. I was kind of being groomed to work collegiate sports. And then I had a chance to go work high school sports. And my first job out of grad school was high school. And I loved it. I love the chance to build relationships, to work with a younger population, to really like invest in and influence and grow with these kids, these young men and women, and invest in their families, invest really in their community that I lived in now. And that was a huge, huge opportunity for me. And then I thought, well, I'll change, and I'm going to have kids now. I'm going to go into the rehab sector, and I became the rehab director, and that's great and wonderful and awesome, but I hated it. I hated being in the office all the time. I hated being, in that sector where I didn't have the chance to build as many relationships and stuff like that. And then it changed. And I was talking earlier, I never thought I would be a teacher and a college professor at that. And here I am. This is my 11th year as a college professor, teaching sports medicine and healthcare, and never thought I would go write a 150 some page paper for a dissertation that, to get my PhD. I never thought that was me at all, but that has continually changed. But at the same time, my clinical passions have adapted and changed too. And that has allowed me to learn new skill sets and to go off and get extra education and background. And I know I'm a little different and off kilter. I'm one of those healthcare providers. I'll be honest, I love the carnage. I like to be around the chaos. I like to be around the logistics of it. I go really calm in chaos. So for me, that is kind of my place to go professionally. A lot of individuals, other healthcare providers, they don't like that. I've got students that are like, we don't ever want to do that. Like, we don't like that side of things. And you make us do that all the time and we don't like it. I was like, yes, but I want you to be prepared when things happen. To get out there and do that. So I approach things a lot different than some people, maybe a little more extreme than some people in my approaches, but it's still a way we kind of go about it. So to answer those questions right there, can your why change? Most definitely. And I think your why, or your underlying why, won't necessarily your foundation, but the ways you go about it may change. And then can you adapt and grow? You better. Like, you need to adapt it. Can you adapt it and grow it? Most definitely. And it's okay to get in and settle in with what you like and want to do, and kind of go from there too. So, but yes, to answer those questions, those are what I feel are great questions, because students come in all the time. They'll be going their senior year and they're like, Jonathan, I decided I don't want to go to PT school or physical therapy school. What do I do now? I'm like, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, I really want to work college football. I'm like, okay, then let's figure out a way for you to work college football. Or I really want to go and work in the military setting. Great. I have a new connection in the military setting. Let's go call them. Or, hey, I want to work professional motorsports. Hey, guess what? I've got 3 or 4 connections in professional motorsports now. Let's call them. And then that allows their network to grow. But what they don't realize all the time, it allows my network to grow too, because now I've got students going out all over the country and world. And now I can call them up as like, hey, I've got so-and-so that's graduating in a year or so. They're really interested in working with astronauts. So I call my buddy at NASA at Cape Canaveral, and I'm like, hey, what do you got? He's like, we got an internship coming up this summer. You got a kid who wants in? I was like, yes. He's like, okay, 12 weeks, all expenses paid. We'll pay them to come down here. We'll put them up. And their athletes are astronauts. They're getting ready to go to the moon and Mars. I'm like, to me, that's just super cool. Like, I thought I would work with baseball and football and basketball players my whole life. And now I've got my students are going off, and, I've got friends that work for Cirque du Soleil and in performing arts, and their athletes are ballet. And my kids were super jealous and told me I need to switch my jobs a couple of years ago, because one of my wife's friends, who happens to be an athletic trainer, and he's a guy I've never actually physically met. We've talked numerous times. He's presented in my classes and stuff like that, and I know him really well. We've never actually been face to face, shook hands. And he sent me a text. He says, hey, I bet you're jealous. And his picture was, he was in the wings on the side of the stage on Broadway, because he was working with Lion King for a month stint. So that's what he was doing. His athletes were the cool, awesome, amazing performers that were singing their hearts out and moving with large animals on their heads for Lion King. And that's just a kind of a fun, different, approach and way to look at it. And he was a professional football athletic trainer for about 5 years. And then he went off to do performing arts, which is a total shift in his approach and how he looked at it. So, all right. So I always look at, my biggest thing is where do your passions and where do your opportunities meet? And sometimes it's meet because I walk up and I ask a question. I was like, oh, my family homeschools. What is on-track school? Right. And that is how we met. I said, what is on-track school? And you gave me a great, wonderful pitch of what our school is and what it does. And I said, oh, that's really cool. I'm a college professor and educator. I love this concept and idea. I would love to help out in some way. Right. And that's what we did last year. And then this year we chatted numerous times, and they're like, Jonathan, do you want an apprentice? And I'm like, yeah, sure. That'd be great. That's what I do all the time anyway. Bring them on. Right. And we got a chance to kind of do a small part of the apprenticeship program. And then I got asked to do this. And I thought, yes, because this is just another opportunity for me to meet more people. And I was kind of looking through the names of some of you. I don't know all of your names, but I might know some of your faces. Unless I saw Brighton on there. Is she on there somewhere? Did I see Brighton on there, Richards?
I
So
know Brighton. I know Brighton. Yes, Brighton's here. She's with us.
Hi, Brighton. But I got to meet Brighton this year and help her and stuff like that. And so it's just these, I keep increasing these opportunities and these chances, and it's just new passions and new things. And that's the biggest thing I want you guys to understand is, if you want to work in a certain industry or a certain area, go find somebody who does it and ask them about their passion. Ask them why they do it, because you might find, hey, that really excites me. Or you might find like, hey, I don't really want to do that. Because I've got a lot of students, that are not a lot, but some students that want to go off to, again, they want to do physical therapy. And I tell them, that's great and that's wonderful. What type of athlete or what type of population you want to work with? I'm like, well, we want to work with athletes. And I was like, well, then you really need to think about what you're going into, because most PTs nowadays are not working with athletes. They're working with, well, now becoming the geriatric population. The baby boomers are still the largest generation in our country, and they're driving healthcare, right? And then we have the Gen Xers and the millennials and everybody else. It's like, so that's where those types of jobs are. So I want you to have that passion, but let's think about, where is that going to lead you? Are there other ways to get where you're hoping to go? And what does that look like along the way? And then the other big thing is not forgetting what your process is looking like as you're going through it, and how that network of yours, the fingers keep going out to other people, to make new connections and make better connections and things like that. So you have an idea of your passion, you have an idea of what you want to do. And if you've seen Nemo, now what? Right? Now, what are you going to do with it? You have, okay, I've got this passion. I really want to work in sports medicine. I may have this opportunity. How do I capitalize on it? Right? Or what do I need to do to capitalize on it? What I need to do and go from there. And it could be just, you start building your network, right? I worked that event for Cody Nance, the bull riding event, one night, and I relocated his shoulder. I took care of a guy that had a sprained wrist and taped him up. And I looked at a guy's knee, and he said, I hurt my knee 3 weeks ago, and not a single person has been able to look at it and evaluate the way you did right there. I'm like, cool, that's great. The guy who owns the slide ride walked up to me that night and said, hey, I just saw you take care of that guy's shoulder. I need a medical provider tonight. I'll pay you cash, whatever you want, to come work for me tonight. My wife was like, go, we need extra money for whatever, go do it. Got it. And that has turned into me working almost every Friday, Saturday night since the second week of January. And I have a major affiliation and partnership, and I've worked 5 or 6 major bull riding events this year because of those connections. And it's just, that network has grown exponentially. And I like this quote. I talk to my students about this all the time, and some of them have slowly started to understand it. Is, networking is not just about connecting people. It's about connecting people with people, people with ideas, and people with opportunities. Right? I won't lie. You asked me to come and speak and do this, and I'm like, yes, sure. I would love to do this, but this creates a new opportunity for me. Right? And I was telling Andrea this earlier. I've heard of Dr. Ryman. And I got to meet him this year when we were at the ranch, and he and I hung out for a couple, 3 days, and I must have made a decent impression, because he kept wanting to come up and talk and chat and, and stuff like that. And I didn't realize this, but he was watching me work the whole time, because he kind of came to me and said, hey, I think you should submit your resume to go work for the Alpine Stars group when they're coming to the East Coast and the Midwest, because you're closer. And I was like, well, I don't. He's like, no, you need to do this and I'll vouch for you. I was like, oh, okay. Opportunity just knocked, right? Opportunity didn't even knock. Opportunity just kicked in the door right in front of me, and then it pushed me in. And I was like, okay. I was like, so I submitted my stuff right then when I was at the ranch that week. And, that's going to start up here in a couple months. And I'm like, okay, what does that look like? Or what does it look like to work arena cross? And then, now all this bull riding stuff's coming through. What does it look like to keep continuing this? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I've got high schools calling me because they need their sports teams covered. And I can't cover it, but I have a bunch of new students who are certified who can cover it. So they come work for me as contractors. And now my business goes from here to now I'm covering here and here and here and here. And then it becomes this passive income for me and my family. And then we get to reap those benefits, but I'm still providing care to people in my community that I didn't even know existed, that needed it, until, those opportunities start to connect and grow and stuff like that. And always create yourself. I like this picture. Just think of yourself as a hub. Like you're the center of it, and you've got those tight people around it, right? My family's right there around it, and a couple other supporters and mentors. But then what does that hub look like around it? And then now I've got more and more fingers coming off of it all the time, and it just grows. And it's beneficial to me. It's beneficial to my students. It's beneficial to my people I take care of, and stuff like that. So, and that's the biggest question, but who's your network and why do you have your network? So right now, no one has to answer, but just take like 10 seconds while I get a drink of water and think about who was one person right now, if you had an idea of something you wanted to do, who could you go off and talk to and call?
And if you want to write in the chat, if you're comfortable with that, just tell us, Jonathan, soon to be Dr. Jonathan, who that person might be. We talk about this in our ambassadors group, that we have mentors. There's people out there that we look up to, and it's really important to be able to bounce ideas off people with a like mindset.
Yep. And that is a huge thing, and that's a huge, like you talk about soft skills or skills, like finding those people that you think is beneficial to build a relationship with. And it may be someone at first you're like, I just don't know if we're going to gel or get along very well at all. And you may be really surprised, like, oh, actually, I realize I'm more like them than I thought, or they're not what I thought, right? And like, it could be someone that you like, and I can use motocross or whatever. If it's someone that works in your sport or your activity, who's someone I can talk to? Like, oh, hey, when I get done riding, or when I get done racing, or when I get done doing this, or I get done with high school, or maybe I'm going to go to college, when I get done doing these things, how do I stay in what I want to do? Because I really have a passion for this. Mm-hmm. And then what does that look like? So now, guess what, you all? I'm part of your network. So if you need something, you have a question, hey, Jonathan, what does this look like? Oh, I know somebody does that. Let me make a phone call for you. Let me send them an email. Oh, you should try and do this, right? So this right here, this but who, should always have a core. Like you guys, hope you've seen that theme a little bit now. You should have that core group and people and supporters, but it grows all the time. It's constantly evolving and constantly getting bigger. And that's how it expands for you. And that's how you kind of get to move on. So, and here's the deal too. A lot of people are like, oh, I've got my life, I've got my professional life, right? For me, they're all three interconnected. And I look at it that way, right? Now, sometimes my professional life probably overrides my family and personal life, and I put a lot of time in. And you have to kind of find that, we call, like I'm again writing my dissertation on, one of the biggest things is job satisfaction. And what does that work-life balance look like? And why are we there? And what are we doing? But I want to encourage you that these kind of things right here, like you are a part of both of these, the life network and the professional network. So again, your core, your foundation, your pillars should probably work well in both those lives, in both those situations, because the ones that I'm kind of focusing my life on are the same ones I'm focusing my professional life on too. Because that's me, like, right. It's not like my professional life is, I'm a completely different person. It's not like that. Those things are all built off of who I am and who I am as an individual, my person. So that's why I like here that they're kind of cyclical. They're cyclical. Sorry. They're all interconnected and they all kind of go together, if that makes sense. So, and then I like this. I was building this and I was like, this could have gotten way out of hand. It already looks like way out of hand, but this is, Ball State is where I went to school. Fayette Regional Health System there is where I used to work. But all of those off to the right, so like, from here over, every one of those connections has happened in the last 3 years. Every one of them. So On Track, Alpine Stars, hopefully, ConAgra Foods, Sway, which is a company that's asked me to do some ambassadorship for them. It's a concussion management system. All the bull riding stuff, all those types of things. Like over here is still my life network. This is my family. This is me, right? But all this professional network out there, which is huge right now. And there's still areas I bump in and out of that. I do retail sales for some things because I've sold sports equipment and stuff over the years and things like that. I've still got people that reach out to me about stuff. But how do those things interconnect, and how do they all come together? And, I've got companies now calling me, wanting me to use their product and willing to send me thousands of dollar, multi-thousand-dollar pieces of equipment, because, hey, we want you to put this in your hands because we want you to tell people about it. I'm like, all right, cool. I believe in your company. I believe in what you're doing. Let me know. I'll do it. I'm in. Right. And then, then we grow off from crowd to pillar to now this right here is connected there, which connects me here, which is connecting me to you all. Right. Which connects me here, which connects me to the x-ray system I work with, which now the guy who called me about Sway is going to start repping and selling this product here, the x-ray system we use this year. And I'm going to get a little kickback out of that, hopefully, and get one for myself to my company to use here soon enough. That's something I never thought I would do. It's something I would never thought I'd be able to have and take a hold of, and kind of continue to grow what I'm doing. And this was just an example. I just wanted to kind of show you guys, and you can see how things connect and interconnect. And
I
go
think that's
from
super
there.
cool, Jonathan, not to interrupt you, but I think that's a
Oh,
super cool graphic visual of your life's work. And I love how you built Pillar, because that's the first question I asked you before, even though we know each other, I didn't really know the name of your company. And I love how you built your pillars into your life's passion. And I think that's something that On Track School mission and vision aligns with yours as well. I think
that's
that would be a great activity, especially for my ambassadors. I know I have some of our ambassadors here today, to try and do that, because the work that you put in is what you get out, and it's kind of a win-win.
yeah. And you guys are all young, so I don't expect you to have all this, right? However, let me use some of you for an example. If you're a racer or motocross racer or something like that, and you have a lot of sponsors, guess what? You have a lot of network in here, right? Some of you may have more than others. Some of you may have more prominent ones than others, right? Because even if you're not let's just say, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of an example. Let's just say you wear Fox Racing gear, right? You love your product. They give you a discount, and you use that discount, you wear their stuff. Well, as well as I do, there's some other riders who get all their stuff for free, right? Okay, well, that doesn't mean their network is that much greater. You still have a network in there. Now you just need to expand on your network, right? And continue to grow that network, because you never know what that partnership might grow into. And I'll be honest with you, like this right here, this one from down here to the rodeo company I work with, down to the PBR Challenger Series I work, down to a couple other things, that has made my family a really good, decent amount of money this year that we were never expecting at all. And it's helped us out financially. And that's been a big deal for us. And my wife is even like, you really like this type of stuff now, don't you? I was like, I really do. She goes, I feel like it's something. She said, I feel like it's something you've been searching for. And I didn't even realize it. Right. And of course, our spouses know us better than anybody. But she's like, I realized that was what you were searching for, and going here. And this picture is just funny. They actually made a yard sign for me. My football team did, because it looks like I'm all yelling and crazy. And really what it was, I was just making a silly face walking back from the huddle with bottles of water. And I squirted water at the camera girl, and she took a picture of me being silly. But it looks like I'm all, my kids are like, Dad, it's like you're all fired up and yelling and passionate. And I was like, that's what I want. I want my students to know, I want my athletes to know that I'm right there with them, and I'm passionate about what we're doing because I'm passionate about them. And that's kind of the idea behind it. So what are your lessons learned? Right now, think about it. Maybe put it in the chat. What's one thing you kind of took away from this? What's one thing you can think about? Okay, I can apply this. And when I say apply, it's something that you could maybe apply this week, right? A challenge. I would give you a challenge. And again, if your ambassadors we want to have a meeting with your ambassadors sometime, I'd love to lay out, this is how I did this assignment and what it looked like, right? This is why we did it. But what's something, when I say something that you can apply, what's something you can do right now that I could reach out to someone and say, hey, this guy talked to us the other day at our school. He said we should do this. You're the person I thought of. I want to talk to you about maybe doing some mentoring or some things or stuff like that or whatever. Would you be willing to let me talk and pick your brain? Can we have a Zoom call? Can I come by your office? Can I come by the track? Can I come by the gym? Whatever you might be in. And how can we, I'm really interested in what you do. Can we talk about it? And what does that look like? So again, think about that. What's a lesson you learned, or what's something you take away? And then kind of a quick thought I want to just leave you with here, because I know we're getting to about 45 minutes. Something I want to leave you with here is, don't forget, you don't have to go from A to Z immediately. My students all the time, they get frustrated. They're like, well, I can't do this, or I do this, or they're trying to they're stressing about studying for this national certification exam, right? And all these things, like they're trying to worry about the tests. And I tell them all the time, guys, yes, I want you to pass this test, but whether you pass the test or not does not determine whether or not you're going to be a really good athletic trainer or a good sports medicine provider. I know a lot of people who are awesome test takers, and they'll pass that BOC exam first time, every time, no questions asked, but they couldn't talk to me, of all people, if they had to. And their bedside manner is horrible, and they're not great clinicians. And that nothing that they've done wrong. They're just not, right? So I want to encourage you guys, or they're thinking they have to know all this special heavy duty stuff, like in-depth stuff. Like, well, we don't know what you know. I was like, well, yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years. Like, I don't expect you to know half of what I know, right? I'm trying to get you to be able to do the entry level stuff, the basic stuff, the inner stuff. That's what I want you to know, right? Because that's what you need. So don't forget that the process takes time, right? But process always equals progress, right? Because you're always progressing. That's something I really that's how I've kind of sort of forced myself to get my paper done, my dissertation done, is process is progress. Like going through that process, going through the steps, going through the everyday, growing yourself and growing your network and where you are, and having a better understanding of why you are what you are, who you are, is always you making progress. And it's always going to make you a better person in the end. And that, to me, that's what I want to leave you with is just remember, like, you start to kind of figure out who you are at your core, and what are your things that you stand on, right? And what are the things that kind of light you up? And then how do you take those and those opportunities that might come along that you don't even think about, right? Like the slide and ride opportunity I got, I literally said, okay, God, if you want me to start working this rodeo stuff, which I'm really kind of passionate about, you'll present an opportunity for me. You'll figure it out. And I kid you not, guys, 2 minutes later, this guy walks up and taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, my name's Doug. I'm the owner of the slide and ride. Would you be willing to come and do some medical coverage for me tonight? I saw what you did with that guy's shoulder. And I just did my job. He just happened to see me do it. And I was like, yep, I will. Let's do this. And then it's turned into a really, really cool relationship and affiliation with them, that I've got my banners up all over the place in there. People know who I am. I've got random patrons and workers there that see me all the time, like, hey, Doc, what's up, Doc? What's going on, Doc? Everybody take care of that guy out there, Doc. It looked like it was a scary one, right? And it's just, to me, that's just me and what I do. But I make an influence on people, and I grow a network of people that I didn't realize I do sometimes. And you will do that. And Andrea's done that. Tasha's done that. The people I know that work for OnTrack, you guys have all done that. And you guys, as you get older, will do all that as you go along too. So
I love that.
I'll leave you with for there. How's that sound?
I love that. And I love that you said that you don't expect them to get it at this young age right now, and take away one thing. And so we have Ruby, who had said, reach out and ask to talk to people. Who knows where it could take you? And it's so true. My mom back in the day said, you don't ask, you don't get. And that went for Santa Claus too, by the way. Just want to throw that out there. Now we're having to tell our granddaughter that. And then I'm
going to stop sharing so I can see the chats. Is that okay real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. The chats see what people said.
Yeah, the chats are super fun. And then Matt said, reach out to the people who can direct him in the right direction. Amen.
Yep.
I think that's an absolute great point. And Cohen, do what you love every day. And at OnTrack, it is about passion, and it's obvious in your oh good, you're not frozen. In case
I'm not frozen. No, I'm just listening.
Okay. In case I drop, which has happened a couple of times, keep on talking amongst yourselves. I'll come back.
Yeah.
But it's obvious in your story that passion is truly key to your success and building relationships. And what I find really fascinating is the pillars that you built under your passion, because it's one thing to have passion, but the why, which is your story tonight, is your pillars. And I think that would be the next level, right? To identify what those are.
I see Rick's question. Let me see. So
go for it.
So Rick, you asked, what would be your advice based on your life experience to our students and staff when things aren't happening for you or your network, or if it feels like there isn't much progress being made dealing with adversity? That's a good question. I think the biggest thing that you can take away from that is, or the biggest way to approach that is that you have to remember, it's like Andrew just said, and honestly, Andrew, you've said a couple things tonight. I'm like, yeah, I didn't even realize I was doing that, or I didn't realize I even did that. It just sort of happened, like just naturally sort of happened. I think that's the thing is, like, if you know what you stand on and where your foundation is and what you're built off of, then I think that you can always have to just go back to that. Like go back to, okay, this isn't going, and I'll be honest with you all right now. This is where I stand on a couple of things right now with me. I'm doing a couple of things and I've been presented with a few opportunities. And my wife made a good point. She's like, yeah, but does this really provide us a real strategic move based off what you value and what you're wanting to do? And I'm like, I don't know if it does. And if it doesn't, then I don't want to do that. Right. But there's some things that I feel like I'm right there and I'm really pushing to get some things done. And my biggest adversity right now, I'll be open with all of you. I don't want to write this paper. I have no desire to finish this paper. And because my why has changed since I started it, I'll be honest with you. And I started it because I was going to have to do, my profession is transitioning to a master's degree as the entry level or the lowest level degree you can have. Well, in order to teach a master's degree education, I have to have a doctorate. You have to have a degree above what you're teaching. And great, wonderful, fine. And I really like education and want to do it, but I thought I was going to kind of be stepping away from the clinical side of things. Mm-hmm. And now all my clinical stuff has shifted to what I think I've been longing to find for a really long time. And I'm like, oh, man, now what does this look like? And I get hung up in, I'm not making any progress. I'm not making any progress. I'm not making any progress. And then I have to step back for things like this. Like, well, no, hold on. I reached out to so-and-so today. I did a couple of interviews and I did some more digging into the research. Oh, that was a process today, Jonathan, that you did a process. Therefore, you progressed in your professional learning and your demeanor and things like that. I think that is the biggest thing. My long-winded way of answering Rick's question is, I think you have to then remember what you're based off of and come back to that and reset if you need be even, and go from there. Hopefully that answers your question, Rick. Hopefully.
No, thank you. I think it's a great, I think it's constantly happened in my life experience. You have to stay true to yourself. Sometimes when you're banging your head up against the wall, you got to go reset and, okay, yeah, who am I and what is my why? And it's a constant reassessing. So I appreciate your response. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you for a good question. So I like when I have to kind of think on my feet real quick, like, oh, how would I answer that? It's like, so anyway.
No, it was a great question. Thank you for that, Rick. And I also, Jonathan, I think reset is a great word. And sometimes from my counseling background, I think it's important to understand that expectations on yourself change. Plans do change, and give yourself some grace. I'm not telling you that you, as a principal, I'm not telling you not to write that paper. Don't take this the wrong way.
Yeah.
I know for myself, I had to reevaluate how much can I do and what can I do well. Yeah. And if I go down too many roads, then something's going to give. And so I think it's important to reset. I think that's a great response.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So.
But if anybody out there has any questions for Jonathan, this is a great opportunity. You can even take off your mic. Just let me know that you've got a question and we'll get that addressed. I would encourage ambassadors, especially, or anybody doing this, make a little visual of what your network, I'm so visual that spoke to me. I mean, I could read all kinds of things off that. I could see your pillars in there. I could see your passion in there. And I can see where it goes off the page out into the universe.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool.
And I left off so much old stuff that I'm not doing anymore, but I've still built so much off of that I can go back and find that, what that looks like and stuff like that. So
That's good. Well, I'm so glad to hear what's happening. And I love the ripple effect
yeah.
of networking, especially because I know your heart is a win-win heart. I know you're a faithful person, and you believe in, where you're going, and that's only going to bring good things back to you. So
But
it's
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Surely one of you students has at least one question.
Surely.
See, I'll put them on the spot. Like I said, this is like, I tell them all the time, I can wait you out all day.
Good. Let's do it.
Someone's got one question at least. It doesn't have to be the most amazing question in the world, or who's willing to give me what one of their life lessons, what one of the things they learned was.
That's a fair question.
I can make Miss Tasha do it. Just because I see your picture down there on my screen. Are most of the students high school, middle school age?
I'd say high school.
Oh, then you all, I know you guys talk.
High school, and we have some
Right.
team members.
So Ruby, where are you from?
I am from Connecticut, but in Indiana right now.
Where at in Indiana?
Ironman Raceway.
All right. That's up near like Crawfordsville, stuff like that, correct?
Yep, Crawfordsville.
So I'm from Bedford, Indiana, which is about an hour and a half south of there. So just south of Indianapolis. But I went to school at Ball State, which is in Muncie. So basically like kind of a right direct across the state. So are you practicing or are you racing up there?
I am racing the last GNCC of the year. So racing.
Go up to Jared Bolton and tell him that Jonathan says hi, and then give him a hard time for me. So anyway. All right. So your question is, how did you overcome the last time you didn't want to do so? Oh man. So you're putting me on the spot right there. How to overcome it? Okay. I legitimately had a conversation with myself today. I had to run an errand. It took me about an hour, about 40 minutes to driving, pick something up and come back. So I literally had a conversation with myself. I was listening to a podcast with a guy I really like to listen to and kind of a motivational person. And I legitimately said in my head, I that's where the reset came from. I have to reset. I have to change my mindset. I lost a bunch of weight and got healthier for a while. And now just due to life stuff, we're living in our camper too, with all 8 of us are in our camper, and it's tight and it's not ideal. Right. And all these things. And I've, let my health go a little bit. And then I've kind of let myself just lost my motivation to write my paper and all these things, and just stuff that gets that distraction out there. And and it's not easy to just say, well, you're done, Jonathan, fix it, go on tomorrow, or you're going to do it all again. But I think what you have to kind of keep telling yourself, it goes back to that process and progress thing, is tomorrow's another day. I'll go and I'll do this, and I'll try and eat, drink less soda tomorrow, or I'll try, or pop, or whatever you want to call it. I call it pop. Right. So you'll try and drink less of that today, or I'll try and make sure I read 3 articles today, or I'll try and I will try and write 1,000 words. Writing 1,000 words is not hard. Typing it up. Right. And then, those types of things is I think you just have to constantly go back to that reset. And you have to remember not to beat yourself up too much, because we talked about the mental health side of stuff a little bit before we started recording. That has become a big deal, and something that it's okay to talk about. Mm-hmm. And a lot of big bearded burly guys like me don't like to talk about mental health. But I think that's legitimate and real, because I think we have to give ourselves grace. We have to give ourselves some leniency.
Yes.
And we have to remember that we are human. We are going to fail. We do fail. And that we can get up and go on to the next day tomorrow. Ruby, that's a great question. So thank you.
Excellent question.
Brian, what you got? I learned that even when you don't see the opportunity, as long as you don't give up, eventually something will come along. That is so very true. Right? Because, like what does I always say, when God closes the door, he opens a window, right? So it's like, or just because this one door didn't open all the way, well, maybe half of it did, or, hey, I can fit better through the window because that room it's going into is actually where I want to be anyway. Right. So that is so very true, that just because you don't see the opportunity doesn't mean it's not fully there. Mm-hmm. Right. Because what that opportunity might be, or what you actually get to do, may be the true opportunity you needed that you didn't even realize. Like, for me, I got a chance to go work for another company and work something I really, really wanted to do. Right. It goes into my next question that Cohen asked, like, what's my favorite event to attend? Oh man, well, attend or work are two different things. Like attend is going and not doing anything. Working is getting it. So Cohen, do you mean work it or like just go hang out and watch it? Oh, work. Okay. So I mean, I'll probably say of the last few years, my favorite event this year's Loretta's was my favorite. Because without even realizing it, like I worked with the medical crew, like the EMS crew and stuff like that. And they just looked at me like partway through, they said, you know that this is your show. We're just here to help you. And I'm like, wait, what? I was like, you guys have been EMS. They're like, no. This is your deal. Like, we're EMS. Our goal is we do a quick triage, we transport, we get them out of here and go off to the next thing. You don't do that. You work magic. Like you kind of help people and you do, they made it, he says, you do all this and you fix people. He's like, it's the craziest thing, right? We send them back out to race the rest of the week or whatever. And it was really neat to have that professional camaraderie that I don't get. I usually work by myself a lot because it's just me out there with my team doing whatever. And it was neat to see that. And I'll be completely honest with you. It was a really quiet week. We ended on a really bad injury. That was a permanent life-altering injury. I didn't end up taking care of it because I was taking care of somebody else at the time when that call went out. But like I said, Cohen, I mean, to answer your question, I like the chaos of things. And that week is just nothing but chaos for us, especially like, you kind of sit around, like I always joke that my wife always jokes that, well, did anyone see you tonight when I come home from a football game? And I was like, nope. She's like, oh, so it was a good night then. I was like, it was a good night. I didn't go on the field. Nothing really happened. But she can always tell when I come home, like I get this look. She's like, what happened? Like, how bad was it? I'm like, well, it wasn't just that bad. It was just that busy, right? It was just that time. And, we had a guy break both of his legs and was knocked unconscious. And he came up to me and, I've never felt a leg like that, like in my 20 years of doing this. And I was like, whoa, like this was crazy. And then, I'd get people like Brighton come up and, she hurt her wrist, but she wants to keep racing. And that's awesome for me. And I'm going to help her get back out there and do that because I know that's her passion. Right. So I would say that's probably my favorite, but I've got fun little tidbits and injuries along the way that have been my fun ones to work with. I had a kid break all of his teeth out bull riding this summer or this fall. That was one of the gnarliest things I've ever seen. And I was just like, even me, I was like, not much makes you go, whoa, very often anymore. But I was like, okay, let's go. And we immediately put him in the ambulance and they just knocked him out and sedated him and took him to the hospital and dealt with all that stuff. I could say those stories for anybody later on who wants to hear the gory ones. But so I would say it's probably the things that require me to have to really stretch myself clinically is what I look back on where I really enjoyed it the most. So that's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. And you are the calm in the storm. And that's where you feel
I try to be. So
that's great. And I think that's such a gift. Bull riding has got motocrossers hands down.
I don't know. I said that last night to the wife of Cody, my friend, that we were at we did an event last night called the Homeschool Hoedown, and I got them to come and bring they have a mechanical bull. So they brought their mechanical bull and all the kids were out riding it and stuff like that. And I said that, and she's like, I don't know. A dirt bike will sure heck throw you a long ways. I said, it's true. And I make my students hear me all the time say, a broken arm is a broken arm. They're like, well, yeah. I was like, no. A broken arm is a broken arm. It just depends on how you get it. Right. It's you can be running and trip and fall and just throw your hands on the sidewalk and boom, you break your wrist. It could be that, you're on a dirt bike and now you're jumping a big triple and you're 100 feet, you're flying 100 feet and you're 50 feet in the air and you land in a bunch of sand and the bike doesn't like you anymore. And it just throws you for the next, you're doing one of these, right. And you break your wrist or we had a guy about a month or so ago, he came down, the bull stepped on his arm and that definitely broke his arm, and it's like, okay, let's go. We're going to the hospital. It's still a broken arm. I still treat it the same. It's just, how did you get it? Right. So.
Well, good stuff. We're coming down to the wire and I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story. I want to thank everybody that has joined us tonight. And if you know any friends at school or any team members who missed it, this will live on our On Track School website and we'll be able to see it again. But I just applaud the work you're doing. I know you're going to reset and figure out what to do with that paper. I'm excited what happens. I'm excited to know. You have to tell me like what the title is, and we got to follow up on that. But
it's all about interprofessional learning and opportunities and collaboration. So I want to know, like, I'm really intrigued. I want to know why. I want to know why some athletic trainers, especially new younger athletic trainers, why some of them come out and have a really good idea of who they are as a clinician or what their role is, and they have really good job satisfaction, and why other ones don't. And I think that's partially because while they're in school, they take initiative on their own and become their own informal independent learners with all the other stuff we teach them, and develop relationships with like EMS and physical therapy and occupational therapy and physicians and counselors and whoever else along the way. And I feel like that's what's missing. So that's what they need to be working on. So, well,
it sounds like you and I have some more conversations to be had, because that's definitely a passion of mine. And that's what we work on in our school. So we'll have to hook you up for sure to the ambassador group.
Yeah, let me know.
And we'll be in touch on that. But thank you so much, Jonathan. I really appreciate your time. And everybody's chatting away. Thanks.
Yes, I'll just say thanks for the time.
And we'll see you guys.
Thank you for giving me a chance to grow my network and change up what I'm doing. So it's the whole idea.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
You can tell the bull riders about On Track School just in case they're looking for a school.
I actually thought about that, because some of the kids are, they're kind of homeschooling, doing their own thing. I'll definitely tell them about On Track. And as a matter of fact, there was one I told about it, and the mom was going to look into it. So they were kind of teetering, does they want to put them out of public school or not?
Yeah.
And then, but they must have done something, because he's been in Oklahoma. They live here in Tennessee. He's been in Oklahoma most of the fall. So
yeah, it's a thing that happens at the right time.
Yeah, exactly right. You're right.
It just happens, just like what you explained to us. So awesome. Well, have a good night, everybody. You bet, Jonathan. You have a good night too. Keep up the good, amazing work you're doing.
Thank you. If I don't see you all between now and then, I'll hopefully see you next August. So
you will for sure.
You're welcome.
Bye.